Maybe one of the biggest problems we have, our Constitution has today, is that you have a shadow government. You have a deep state that is trying to undo a presidential election. I'm Dr. Duke, and this is Constitution Corner. Well, we live in unprecedented times, my friends. Over the last 50 years, there's been a very steady, very constant assault on our constitutional rights. Prayer was removed from public schools as early as 1962. The sketchy business of Roe versus Wade, one of the absolute most debacle of a Supreme Court decision that has no real basis in law. You can go on and jump even further ahead where now we've got at universities and college campuses and even high schools, you have the First Amendment under threat. The idea that if you say something that a progressive finds intimidating or insulting or unfair, well, we've got college kids now, in majority of college kids arguing that universities have the right to censor free speech if that speech, quote unquote, hurts somebody's feelings. To say nothing of coronavirus. And the coronavirus has brought us remarkable challenges to our Constitution. You've got state governors now who are not only bound by their state constitutions, but are absolutely bound by the federal Constitution, who are busily going about locking people up, arresting people. California is a classic example of this. They're freeing criminals. Criminal prisoners, violent offenders are being freed from prison because they might catch the virus. On the other hand, you're locking up homeowners. You're locking up people who defy this ban of being out in public, who are simply swimming by themselves in the ocean. And so you can begin to see it. Are we surprised to learn that a video circa came about yesterday of inmates trying to infect each other? 29 of them managed to infect each other through a clever system to be able to be released from prison. But perhaps with all of this going on and the virus itself, it's tempting to overlook something that seems to be a procedural matter. Maybe one of the biggest problems we have, our Constitution has today, is that you have a shadow government. You have a deep state that is trying to undo a presidential election. We now know, because of memos that were declassified and released by the Department of Justice, we now have much more information on how it was that General Flynn was set up by the FBI. We now know that high-ranking members of the Obama administration, including Barack Obama himself, were aware of this. We know from records now that the Strzok of the FBI was out to get Flynn. They were not calling off the investigation, even as their own research found nothing against Flynn. They could find nothing in his background. They could find nothing in his personal life to warrant investigation. But as Strzok said in one of his memos, we're keeping this open, regardless of the fact that there's no information, there's no evidence. We're going to keep this open, and we're going to try to get him to lie to us so we can arrest him or at least get him fired. And that's where we find ourselves. It really is a sketchy, dodgy thing, and now that we know how deep in the FBI this goes, we also know Comey was aware of this. We know that this was a witch hunt. There was no evidence. That the evidence that they did have coming in, they knew things like the Steele dossier on Trump. They knew it was sketchy and unreliable. When you think about all this and more, what we find ourselves with is a coup, an attempt by the Barack Obama administration and the FBI of the United States to go ahead and, target Trump before he was elected, to try to use psyops or black ops and faulty information to undermine his candidacy, and then after he won, to go after him. Think about all this fake Russia stuff. We also know, because of leaked memos, that there was no credible evidence ever that Donald Trump conspired with Russia for any reason. This has got Adam Schiff, as you can imagine, sweating bullets. All the Democrats have now is to attack this, to make the argument that this is not about justice or equity. Flynn was a liar. He lied. He should have gone to jail. He should still be in jail. Their argument is that all this is Donald Trump trying to avoid the coronavirus, how Donald Trump is responsible. Isn't it interesting when you see this here? The FBI is much more interested in what candidate Trump might have been doing or what President Trump and his cabinet were up to than they are, for instance, about what went on in a lab in Wuhan, China. It is a remarkable situation now that the FBI's concerted effort for the entire 3.5 years of Trump's presidency, and even before that when he was a candidate, was all geared categorically to remove him as an obstacle, to undermine his candidacy, and when he won the election, to take away his authority. And as we see now, Donald Trump was impeached on a charge that had no evidence. General Flynn walks. We find ourselves in a situation now where it's time to turn around and don't just investigate the FBI, don't just investigate high-level members of the Obama administration. It is time now to do to them what traitors usually get, people undermining the democratic process, the Republican process of our country. This has been the Liberty News Hour. As always, you can go to thenewamerican.com and jbs.org for more topics as well as more shows.